That is a good question, Kevin. Have we seen the last of the 90s of the year? We'll be taking a closer look at that here in just a few moments. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the blog today. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good on this Friday. Happy Friday to you. Sorry, I was out yesterday. I've been battling sinus stuff like everyone else has as of late. It's really been taking me down here in the past week or so. So I know I'm not alone on that. Everyone's fighting that ragweed. Ragweed is the biggest pain, right? Hopefully we'll get a chance to at least get that count down in the coming days with some refreshing air coming back into play as we head back into the Ohio Valley. Yes, everyone's been talking about this most of the week. We are still on track to get a cooler than normal weather pattern that's coming our way. No, it's not going to snow, at least not yet. But it is certainly going to get everyone thinking about fall, Halloween, all the decor, candy, all that kind of stuff. Of course, candy's been out for a while, but the Halloween decorations, I got a feeling, are really, really going to go up with this kind of a pattern. More on that in a second. I at least want to cover some of the base, too, on what's happening in the tropics. That's been a big talker as well. Some indirect influence with Lee and our weather. I'll explain here in just a second. As always, you guys can comment on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, X, or YouTube. Still can't get used to the Twitter part. I'll get to it. But if you have any comments, you can there. Otherwise, watch on streaming. Just hang tight. Again, this will replay back once I'm done here today if you want to watch it back later. All right, let's get into the beautiful sky. Now, clouds have been holding tough in many spots. You're about to see it from the visible satellite, but the clouds have been holding across much of Indiana and Kentucky. There have been a few breaks. We will see this kind of theme today where we're going to get an overcast looking sky, low stratus, and you're going to get a few little hints of blue showing up, looking good. That'll be enough to hopefully warm up your heart to your soul on this Friday and get you in a good mood. Otherwise, clouds in some areas will likely linger. The thing is, the clouds will likely fight us all weekend long. It's a low pressure. It's going to be developing. It's going to be keep things relatively quiet. There's no major systems or anything like that coming our way. It's just typical autumn weather where you get into more of a cloudier setup this time of the year. And this is a relatively familiar sight to see this in September. The radar is detecting a few sprinkles. I saw a few of those on my way in, even in this morning. A few dots on the windshield. Can't rule that out. I think most areas will indeed be dry, but one or two spots could run to a little patch of drizzle here and there. This is a look at the visible satellite, so you don't really get an image until the sun comes up and it gets to where it can light up the cloud. That's the reason why it's dark at the beginning of it. But as the sun rose this morning, you can see where we've got fairly thick cloud cover. The stratus really show up well across central Kentucky, a little more broken there in Indiana. And that's the reason why you saw a little bit of blue showing up working its way into areas of Louisville. But in general, clouds kind of ruling much of the Ohio River Valley. In fact, much of the eastern seaboard. As the sun is coming up, there's two areas of low pressure we'll be watching. One that's across the Great Lakes that's kind of influencing our weather today into parts of your Saturday. Meanwhile, this little feature here is moving across Arkansas, is going to dig into areas of the southeast corner of the country. It will also develop a low pressure that will have a cloud shield with it and some rain. That too will influence our weather at times for this weekend. And it's all about proximity. So we got two lows, one up to the north, one will be to our east. Louisville in general is kind of falling in that zone next to both of them, where at times we will see some influence with passing clouds, maybe a brief shower that can take place. But it keeps temperatures relatively in check. You really are, the sun angle is not as high as it was even 3 weeks ago. The sun angle is getting lower and lower. We're getting into autumn. So we're not as able to fight back on sunny days on the warming process as we were able to during the core of the summer, of course. But still, there's enough sun to where the clouds can break up enough. You can get it to 80 degrees or even above that. But if you stay cloudy, 70s will likely be the rule for you for high temperatures. So that's the general idea for the weekend. Let me kind of set you up on the Futurecast. And here we go. You can see where we got spotty showers. This particular model doesn't do really well on the cloud cover, but you get the idea where it's picking up on the spotty shower chance. You see the low that develops there to our south and east, southeast Kentucky. A little more of a rain signal there, by the way. A little more upsloping as you head into West Virginia, and the Carolinas. So Saturday, most of the rain will be found there across eastern Kentucky. Now, there is a little hint on this particular model wants to try to develop some downpours on the western side of the comma head as we head into your Sunday. Right now, we're going to keep that chance low. But I do think what it's doing, though, you see the division here where we got sunny skies west of Louisville and cloudy skies east of Louisville, and Louisville right in the middle along I-65 is kind of the dividing line. I think that's going to be kind of the rule we're going to see, especially on Sunday. And eventually, that will move away. But just as it moves east and gets kicked out of the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas, yet another one is coming in. And this was the one that's going to be a little more influenced by Hurricane Lee, by the way, as we get into next week as far as them battling out on the weather map. But in general, there's not much of a gap. The only gap I see here to get a lot of blue sky back in the area will probably be late Sunday or Monday. That's it. Otherwise, bet on more clouds than anything. So there you go. What was that, Devin? Let's see. No 90s for elevated areas outside the city for the rest of the year is my prediction. We need more rain. That's true. And that's a key point, Devin, because if we end up drier than normal, you can still get some warm surges to get up to 90. That is possible. But I don't think we're to that point yet. But that's the only way usually in the autumn you can get up to about a 90-degree temperature. Otherwise, it's really tough to get to 90 after this point. It can happen. Absolutely happened last year after this point. So it's possible, but it's a little more of a feat. Last year we had a drought, a very pronounced drought that was developing, so it was easier to get the thermometer to move. In this case, though, we're not quite to that level, but something we'll be watching. I don't know if we'll get to 90, but I still don't think we're done, certainly with the 80s, mid-80s, even at that, still will be at play. But overall, a cooler pattern. Okay, so let's get into Lee, and then we'll come back around to the extended. This is the latest from the Hurricane Hunters, and they flew into this. This is one of the most recent missions. They got a wind. It's in the northwest quadrant there of 138 miles per hour. Pressure, I think it's a 929, I think is the latest number I'm getting on that. They're flying into this. They're taking off from St. Croix and flying into the center of it, several missions a day, which is remarkable that they're able to do that. That's good. The latest stats on this, still a Cat 5. Everyone's been talking about the rapid intensification in the past 24 hours. It still has a very much a defined eye. Winds 165. Look at the gusts, 200 miles per hour. What a beast this is. So the thinking on this is still for it to slow down. That's the key thing. It's still going to stay Cat 5 for a while. Once it gets north of the islands, gets a little closer to the Bahamas, its slowing down is absolutely crucial here because that is going to allow for a little bit of a window with our front moving in next week for it to kind of stall and linger a bit before it then heads to the north and east. Now, what can happen? Two things really can happen here. One, you get a hurricane this size that's going to grow, by the way. It's going to nearly double, if not even, I would say at least double, maybe even triple in its size. It's going to get massive. Once it gets into this portion of the Atlantic, if it slows down, what a Cat 5 will do, or even a Cat 4, it will take the water. It loves warm water, right? The warm top layer of the water, especially. It will churn it. It churns it so much that if it slows down, then it ends up taking some of the colder water that's underneath it and pulls it to the surface of the ocean. And that actually can cause some weakening that can happen. It depends on how long it lingers. Now, if it keeps moving, it will still have warmer water to at least grab a hold of. But if it starts to slow down, that's when it may end up becoming its own enemy, which will be a good thing, right? As far as trying to get it to weaken. But it's certainly going to be that slowing down is key on its intensity down the road. As far as its track, still looks like it wants to take a turn once it gets near the Bahamas and head near Bermuda and out to the north and east after that. Let me back that up. Sorry, I didn't mean to go too fast. My issue with that, though, with this type of track, even if it doesn't make landfall, you guys are already fully aware that this thing's producing 40 to 50, maybe even 60-foot waves are coming off of Lee and just slamming into the Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, all the way into the Bahamas, and even the East Coast is going to feel an increase in the wave action and the rip currents. So even if Lee is not making landfall on the eastern coastline or the beaches, it's one of those things where a lot of the beaches are closed or will be closed because it's too dangerous to get in the water. This kind of a scenario. So Lee's causing problems, even if it's not a landfalling hurricane yet. Now, once it heads to the north, I do think, and I didn't include this in the map, but New York City, Nova Scotia, Maine, Nantucket, all those areas, yeah, that's not good because this thing is going to accelerate once it gets to that level and latitude in the northeast part of the country. But man, this is going to really cause some big problems. A lot of people will think of something like this leading to damage like we had back with Sandy when it went through the northeast. But this one's going to be a little bit faster, which is good, but still it's going to be quite intense when it heads to the northeast part of the country. But again, impacts anywhere from the Caribbean all the way along the eastern seaboard just because of wave action and rip currents, which are still dangerous. So that's still the big story. A lot of cruises are still trying to take place here. I've been hearing from you guys about this. I hope you have cruise insurance. Because this is causing rough seas over all of the Bahamas. And I don't know if they're altering some of the routes or not. You guys know probably more than I do. But I'm sure that may be the case because in some cases it's going to be too rough for the ships to get through here, even with the sun out, just because of how massive Lee is. All right, we'll keep you updated on that. You'll see on at least the Euro trends where Lee begins to move in across the Western Atlantic and makes that turn quickly to the north. Meanwhile, here comes our front that moves in here about the middle of next week. Some cool weather settles into the Ohio Valley, and it's a yin-yang effect. I'll talk about this a lot in the autumn time. Anytime you get a hurricane like this, it's a heat engine. It's it's the most impressive heat engine there is on the planet. And you get that into the higher latitudes like this, you get a cause and effect setup where you get a really cool pocket of air that can settle into the eastern half of the country when you get an eastern hurricane like that. And this is going to lock the pattern in for a cool regime for, I don't know, maybe more than maybe 5 or 6 days, but a lengthy period of time. I think it's going to be noticeable. And of course, the longer this happens, the longer this lingers, the more we're into the month of September and the harder it is then to get back into warm spells that will take place. The game plan right now is that we will see temperatures at least 10 degrees, if not more, off the mark for highs next week. Could be even more dramatic. And if we get any clearing, which is possible, we could see lows really take it out. This is the GFS ensembles, and you're looking at all the squiggly lines or the different days starting today all the way into next week, highs and lows. And the black line is kind of the median of all the different squiggly lines. Obviously, if the lines are all close together, confidence is high on that temperature idea. And if they spread out apart, confidence becomes lower. Overall, confidence isn't too bad until we get to the front next week. That's where they really spread out here. But look at the numbers. That's 45 degrees right here. This bottom line is 45. There is a chance that if we get some clearing, some of you could drop into the 40s for next week. I did look at the long-term euro. Came out this morning. And looking at that, there is a sign of increasing, at least snow for the Rockies and Western Canada. How that spreads east, I'm still working on right now, but I'm thinking we may end up with more of a cutoff low pattern as we head into the rest of September into October, which will be cooler than normal. But again, I don't think we're going to have any dramatics on heavy rain or drought. I think we may end up being in between, but no snow or anything like that. Don't worry about that. That's too early for that. But it's certainly a pattern change to get to colder is showing up. And I do think it's going to be an interesting setup as we head into October for sure. More on that, though, in the coming days and weeks ahead, as I'm still working on the winter outlook, which, by the way, will come out Halloween night. All right, guys, that's it for now. It's a lot of talking for me today. I got to get some water. I'll talk to you guys on the flip side. See you on midday at 11.